Have you ever opened your mouth to speak only to find your palate dry, voice quavering and mind, well, blank? Performance anxiety can leave us in such a bind. We're anxious because we want to deliver information in a calm and effective way. But the anxiety itself seems to want the exact opposite. Thankfully, there are ways around this. My name's Hazel Gale. I'm a former therapist turned author and creator of the Betwixt app. And after publishing my first book back in 2018, I found myself face to face with the sickening reality that I had to promote the damn thing and that this meant public speaking. Something I'd been scared of for as long as I could remember. I turned to my training to find a way through, and the result was not just a good talk, but one that I thoroughly enjoyed giving. In this video, I'm sharing 3 simple tips to help you stand on stage or to present over Zoom or even chat to a date with calm, confidence, and poise. A note that if you have a talk coming up, you may want to check out my previous 2 videos as well. The first of which covered preparation and writing tips. The second, how to tackle learned fears such as stage fright at the quote-unquote root. First up for today, something I touched on in the previous video. Frame your performance as an act of giving. When preparing for any kind of presentation, it's really easy to fall into the trap of assuming that we need to imagine ourselves giving the performance of a lifetime in order to prep for success. In an attempt to calm our nerves with a confident mindset, we might try daydreaming about a perfect version of ourselves, standing on stage, looking fine, and doling out wisdom like some kind of superstar. As Caroline McHugh discusses in her super inspiring TEDx talk, The Art of Being Yourself. In reality, for most of us at least, imagining all eyes on us is probably more likely to exacerbate our anxiety than alleviate it. As human beings, we are wired for connection and have a fundamental evolutionary need for inclusion and acceptance. This means that the possibility of publicly making a fool of ourselves can be terrifying. Therefore, framing a performance as a situation where we are at the center of everyone else's attention is only likely to heap on the pressure. In my therapy practice, I'd often tell my clients something like this. Whether you're going to be telling a story, performing some art, or educating your audience, be careful to remember that you are giving a gift. An audience doesn't care about you or your nerves anywhere near as much as they care about gaining something from their time sat in their chair. They are ready to receive. Think back to the last time you gave a birthday present to a close friend or family member. In the moment of handing that gift over, were you focused on yourself or were you paying attention to them? By and large, it'll be the latter. When we give a gift, we want the receiver to feel good about it first. And as a result of their pleasure, we get to feel good about it too. Preparing for a talk is much better when we put our ego to one side and think of what the audience has to gain. So rather than seeing yourself nailing it, imagine the audience absorbing the information you're sharing. See them nodding and emoting as they make their own connections. The key is to remember that your performance is really not all about you, and that's a good thing. Step 2, grounding. Let me be clear, when it came to the day of my talk, I was nervous. I still am before speaking, this isn't magic. But the anxiety I felt on that day just wasn't that crippling, paralyzing fear that I'd felt up until that point. Before speaking, I used some breathing techniques and things like finger tapping to manage my emotions. I'm not going to go through these things here because you probably already know them. But my main goal on the day was to make sure that the first few moments of my talk would feel grounding and connecting for the audience as well as me. Here's how you can plan for that. First, find a way to visualize your act of gift giving. For my talk, I imagined that beautiful golden light, the one I mentioned in the previous video, flowing out and away from me and into the audience. This got me in the right mindset for the presentation. Then, when the time comes, as soon as you're up on stage, smile with your teeth. A wide smile is engaging and inviting. And like opening up your body language, it tells your own mind that you're okay too. This might feel forced when you're nervous, but the audience won't know that. Next, start with a pause. The temptation is to rush into it, to just get going. But that does nothing to settle the nerves, and until everyone is sat comfortably quiet and waiting, the room isn't ready. In a way, you haven't got their consent or their respect yet. Pausing long enough for the room to fall dead quiet solves these problems. And it's surprisingly empowering too. For my talk, I got up on stage and I waited until I could hear a pin drop. It was probably about 20 seconds, but it felt like an age. And during that time, I made eye contact with as many people as possible to help myself feel connected with the audience, and them with me. When I started speaking, I already felt like I knew these people a bit and like they were on my side. Another thing you can do in that time is to ground yourself quite literally. Feel the connection between your feet and the floor and notice that it's holding you, that you're stable. Once you begin speaking, start slow. As you may have noticed, I'm a naturally fast talker, and I go even faster when nervous. For a speech, I'm well aware that if I go in at my normal pace from the outset, I run the risk of leaving people behind. And anyway, speaking slowly grabs attention, and it helps your audience to fully process the words spoken and to make an emotional connection. You don't need to do it all the way through, but right at the beginning, it's important. I talked about the importance of practice in the first of these 3 videos, and that includes this little grounding routine. You're unlikely to remember to use a visualization, smile with your teeth, start with a pause, ground to the floor, and begin speaking slowly unless you've rehearsed doing these things. So I suggest you run through the first few minutes of your talk, taking all of these steps in sequence a number of times before the day. With just a little practice, this routine will be not only easy, but also comfortably familiar when you use it, meaning that you can start in a state of confidence, feeling like you know what you're doing because you do. Last but not least, give yourself permission to show your enthusiasm. No one comes to a talk hoping to see a lifeless person speaking about a subject so boring that even they can't muster an ounce of excitement. However, many of us are tempted to downplay our enthusiasm because we've been conditioned to confuse it with naivety or foolishness. Think back to your teens. If your school was anything like mine, then those in the in group were probably desperate to prove that they just didn't give a crap about anything. Apathy was cool. But just imagine those kids up on stage giving a talk. Do you want to listen? I don't. It is a vulnerable thing to share your passion, so it takes a little guts. But it's worth it because enthusiasm is contagious. Feel free to geek out about the gift you're sharing. Let it ooze out of you so that even those in the audience who might not have chosen this topic for themselves just can't help but pay attention. I'm making this video because I believe that anyone who chooses to stand on stage and speak from the heart will relish those moments when their audience leans in to receive the offering. I had no idea before my first big talk that I could enjoy public speaking as much as I did. But my enjoyment wasn't the retrospective type, the kind that comes after something like a parachute jump but only once you're standing on solid ground. What I experienced on stage that day was a present moment, connected and purposeful kind of joy. Speaking was affirming, not petrifying. And it can be for you too. As always, I really hope you found this helpful. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and share it so others can find it too. Finally, if you'd like to take an epic journey through a magical world in the name of personal growth, then you can download Betwixt, the mental health game, which is available on the iOS App Store and Google Play.